Session 2, strategy. This is what you do. All right, so our first one was purpose. This is why you do what you do. Strategy, this is what you do. Love what Martin Luther King Jr. said. He said this: all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. And I love that. If you think about the movement that Dr. King started, and the movement that impacted our world, and the ability to rally people to that cause, and for him to say that anything that uplifts humanity, anything that's going to serve a purpose of impacting people, should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. I just love that word, painstaking excellence. I mean, if you're going to give your all, if there's something that we should literally put every ounce of thought and intentionality into, it should be in a cause that's going to impact people. And for us as followers of Christ, our cause is the kingdom. I mean, that's what it's all about. And our cause should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. I love that. In fact, in your notes, whatever area you are serving in at HHC, we want you to do it with excellence. Excellence. Maybe even painstaking excellence. Right? I mean, we want to be our very, very best. And we want to be thoughtful in this. We want to be strategic in this. We want you committed to fulfill your duties with precision in what you're doing. That again, it's not just another area, it's not just another program, it's not just another element that we're doing, but it's something that we're driven by our why, but there's strategy behind it. There's excellence. There's a craft behind it. There's something that we're doing to sharpen our abilities to do it. Colossians 3:23 and verse 24 says this: whatever you do, so let's just stop there. Whatever you do, right? I love this. So just think about this. What he's getting ready to say is that you can apply this to anything that you do. If you're a parent, you're going to apply this verse. If you're an employee, you're going to do this verse. If you're a manager, you're going to do this verse. If you're a volunteer at church, this is your marching orders. So listen to what he says. Whatever you do, meaning I'm going to give you a principle that applies to every single thing in your life. Finances, people, relationships, everything. He says this: work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. So just listen to this verse. You got to catch this. We've heard this verse. If you grew up in church, you've heard this. But you got to catch this. I mean, it's just saying, whatever you do, so fill in the blank, it doesn't matter what it is. If this is you as a parent, if this is you as an employee, a leader, a volunteer, this is what he says. You need to work at it with all your heart, as if you're doing it for the Lord. So if you're parenting your kids, it's as if you're doing it for the Lord. If you're working a job and you're laying bricks and doing that, you're doing it as you're doing it for the Lord. If you're volunteering at church, you're doing it as you're doing it for the Lord. If you're singing, if you're playing, you're doing it as you do for the Lord. If you're creating some administrative things that need to be done, you're doing it as you're doing it for God, literally. I mean, as you're serving Jesus, imagine this. That the people that you are serving, this is the context of what he's saying. The people that you're serving, imagine that it's just Jesus. Imagine it's him. How would you treat him? So if you're back there with kids on a Sunday morning, and you're walking a kid around, he says, whatever you do it with all your heart. So this little kid is like Jesus. And you're literally going to treat them as such. You're going to honor them. You're going to love them. You're going to work at everything you're doing as though that person is the Lord that you are serving. So you can fill in the blank, whatever it is. If you're putting together an administrative schedule for volunteers, and you're trying to schedule out how fun that is, right? Everybody's request. If I need off here, I need to get here. And you're trying to figure out the schedule for all your volunteers and all that stuff. This is what it says. That as you're working that list, and as you're putting that together, imagine you're submitting this to the Lord. And you're just, I'm doing it for you. The schedule, God, is to honor you, is to worship you. So when you start thinking about it that way, it puts this verse in a whole new light, doesn't it? And it puts volunteerism in a whole new light. Like all of a sudden now, it's, wow, the person that I'm serving is Christ. Imagine if you could go back over your service over the last X amount of years or your life or whatever, and imagine the times as a volunteer, whether it was in this church or somewhere else or maybe just in the community or something like that. Imagine if you volunteered and you got frustrated or you got upset with somebody. Imagine if that person was Christ. Now, I would probably beg to say that most of us would be, I probably would have handled that differently. I probably would have changed a little bit of my response to that person if that was Christ. Well, this is what Paul's saying here. It's like, well, that's what you need to do. So just picture them as the Lord. And that will set the bar. Here's the bar for you. Here's the bar for service. Whatever you do, you just do it with all your heart. And you do it as if you're just working for the Lord. So it covered everything. Well, Paul, what do you mean? Like, what if I don't like the task? What if it's frustrating? What if it didn't go as I planned? What if I'm doing this and doing that? It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, just act as if it's easy. Oh, wait a minute. Well, that changes the game, right? Like that puts serving in a whole new perspective. So again, I just want us to get that because I think this goes back to that idea of why Martin Luther King Jr., who was a Christian, right, who basically said that any cause that's impacting humanity for the good, I mean, you should give your all to it. I mean, is there any other cause that's more important than that? No. So I want you, as you serve in the future, and even this Sunday, and as the week goes, even if it's a ministry that you're doing throughout the week, or whatever it is, whatever you're doing, that you just picture, that's what I'm doing for the Lord this morning. I'm doing that for God. Well, I'm doing that to honor Christ today. And when you do that, this is what the great news is that. This is what it says. So whatever you do, I know I'm reading it again, work it out with all your heart. So we're working for the Lord, not for human masters. And then this is what he says. This is the great thing. So he doesn't just stop there and say, okay, so just do that. And you were like, wow, that's challenging. Okay, I'm going to change my perspective. But then he goes on to say this. Since you know, I mean, you know this, right? Like, the context here is, well, you know that God rewards those that he loves. You know that God is a rewarder of those who seek him, right? And James talks about this. And so it's almost like you should understand that God honors those that honor him. That God rewards those that seek him. It's almost like this is understood, right? Because this is what Paul says. Well, since you know that when you do this, you're going to receive an inheritance from the Lord. Right? Like, it's Christ that you're serving. Like, you know that when you make that schedule and you treat it as the Lord, you know that you're going to receive this massive inheritance from God because of that. Do you know that when you respond this way to that person that frustrated you, or that person that's not doing what you told them, or whatever it is, you know that how you respond to them when you do it as if it's to the Lord, I mean, you know that God's going to give you like his whole inheritance for that. You know that God is actually going to give you a massive reward for what you do. Do we do it for the reward? Not necessarily, but it's just the heart of God to say, I'm going to honor those that honor me. So I just want you to know that as you serve, it doesn't just stop with you serving, but as you give, and this is the heart of God, what does he do? He just keeps on giving to you. Right? We talk about this financially, right? That's why tithing and giving and all these financial giving is so, and it's almost a miracle, right? Because as you give, we would think that we have less, right? If we give, we don't have what we had. It's gone because we gave it away. But yet the Bible says, no, as you give, I'll supply seed to the sower. I'll just keep refilling your tank. And so even though you're giving away what you've got, God says, I'm just going to keep giving you more. Wow. Now most people don't ever take that step because it doesn't make sense, right? It's like, well, if I give something away, if I have $10 and I give $1 away, I have $9. And God says, no, if you have $10 and you give $1 away, not only are you going to get 10, but I'm actually going to probably double down on you. Right? So it's like, this makes no sense to our human reason. So this is what God's saying, not just in the context of money, but in the context of your service. So I'm saying all that to say this. If all this is at stake, two things are at stake when you serve. One, the people that you impact, and that's your sort of external reward, right? Is the people that you impact. And then the internal impact is the reward that you get from serving. That's cool. I mean, if it just stopped with, I know that I'm going to make a difference externally in people's lives, hopefully that's enough just to drive us to serve. But to know that God not only stops there, but he says, and I'm going to bless your socks off when you serve. And I'm going to do something amazing inside of you. I'm going to give you a return and a reward on what your service is. So if that's the case, if there's so much at stake that our external impact and our internal impact of what he rewards us with, that's why the Bible says, you better do this with all your heart. Right? Like, you just give it your all because it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And if we're going to give our all, we've got to bring our best. In fact, in your notes, excellence isn't being the best. It's doing the best with what you have. And this is an important point. Excellence isn't being the best. It's doing the best with what you have. So excellence is not only reserved for those that are the best, quote unquote. Because it's easy to compare and kind of think, well, but we're not that good. Right? Like, if we were doing this, if we were the best, then we would be comparing ourselves to others and kind of saying, oh, our volunteerism is better, or our ministry does it better than others, or our church is better than others. And we would be sitting here comparing and all that stuff. And whenever you compare, you always lose, right? Because there's somebody who's always further along, so you'll get discouraged. And there's always some people that are further behind, and so you'll get overly sort of arrogant. Right? So you always lose when you compare. Because there's always going to be somebody that's above and somebody that's below, and it'll just whack you out of balance. So you don't compare to others and all that stuff. We don't compare ourselves to other churches and say, yeah, they're doing this, and that just seems like it's the best way to do it. Well, we may not be able to do that, so we're not concerned about being the best and being the trendsetter or whatever it is. We just want to do the best with what we have. We may not have all the resources. We may not have all the ability to do those things, but what do we have? And we see this principle at work all the time, right? Jesus operated like this all the time, right? I mean, you remember the miracle of the fish and the loaves, and all these people, thousands, were in need of food, and all they had was, just a few fish and some loaves of bread. And Jesus said, well, what do you have? And they said, we have this. We'll feed like 4 people, and there's like 5,000, maybe more. And he says, well, just bring me what you have, right? So it was that idea. Well, just bring me what you've got, and I'll do something with that. See, when you bring sort of just what you have, God will mix it with what you don't have, and he'll do something miraculous. But if we're always waiting to have the best and to be the best, and our mind is on, well, but it's not the best or whatever, then we're always going to be missing the picture. We just have to do the best with what we've got and be proud of that. Does that make sense? And why that's so important is because as a church, we don't have as many resources as we probably want to have all the time, right? It'd be great if we had the ability to have financial resources everywhere to be able to do this and do that for every ministry and get these and get that. Oh, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need that. Okay, hey man, we got it. We're on it. We got it. I mean, it'd be great if we could, but we don't. But that's okay. Because as long as we're resourceful and we do the best with what we have, God will bring us what we don't have. Amen? God will mix what we've got. But he's not going to bless sort of half-heartedness or not bringing our best. He's not going to bless that with more. Right? So I say all this to say, it's so important that we adopt this attitude in our service and as we volunteer, that we understand that, hey, we've got limited resources, but we're going to maximize them to the fullest. We're going to do everything we can with what we've got. We're going to give that our all. So I wish there were 30 people serving in this ministry with me, but I have 3. But I'm not going to treat it like there's only 3 and just kind of do it half-heartedly. I'm going to treat it like there's 30. I'm going to treat it as though it's the most important thing, and it's I'm going to do the best with what I've got. Right? We tell this to people a lot of times, especially those that want to really get into ministry or whatever it is. You hear a lot of people say, oh, I think I want to be a pastor one day. And it's like, okay, well, great. What are you waiting for? It's like, a church to hire you and to be a pastor? It's like, well, that doesn't happen all the time, So what are you doing to pastor the people around you? I mean, what about your circle of influence? Like, are you pastoring them? Well, no, I'm waiting for a church, right? I'm waiting for a large group of people that will listen to me, or something like that. It's like, that's not going to happen. That's not happening. God doesn't work like that. He blesses those that are faithful with what they've got. Too much is given, much is required. So when you just go pastor the 4 people around you well, guess what God will do? He'll bring 4 more. And then you have 8. And then what does he do? Then you're faithful with those 8, it will double to 16. When you're faithful with that, it'll double to 32, right? He just keeps multiplying your efforts. But we have to understand that when we're faithful with what we got and when we do the best with what we've got, that's what excellence is. And God honors excellence, as we saw. He rewards it. So he'll reward it in your area of ministry. When you treat that thing as though you're serving the Lord and you give your all to it, as though you're giving it your best and you're doing it with excellence, God is going to multiply your effort and he's going to bring people in there. And I guarantee you, in fact, I'll say this, I call it the double down principle. Treat your area of ministry as though it's double the size that it is. And when you start doing that, it will force you to start working in excellence and it will set you up for growth. So if you've got 4 people on your team, you treat it as though you've got 8. If you serve 20 people in your ministry or whatever it is, act as though you're serving 40 people. And when you start operating that way, it will force you into thinking at a higher level. It'll force you to get more excellent in what you're doing. It'll force you to create better systems and better programs and better strategies and all kinds of things. Then it will literally create the roadwork for growth. And I'll go back to this. Remember when Noah built the ark? Did he build the ark when it started to rain? Of course not. He built it. In fact, it took him almost over 100 years to build the ark, by the way. You talk about being faithful. In a drought, right? Like, I'm just going off of a promise that there's going to be a thing called a what? A flood? Never heard of that because rain never came from the sky up to that point. It only came from the ground. So it's like, I don't even know what that means, the earth flood and all this stuff. I just heard the voice of God. I don't even know really what I'm doing. And he was faithful to do it for 100 years. In fact, he had to plant trees in order for them to grow, in order to cut them down to use them for the ark. So the process wasn't just like go to the local, lumber yard and go pick up some, massive timber, right? I mean, he had to plant the trees that he was going to cut down and then wait for them to grow over decades in order to even get them ready and prepare them for the ark. I mean, you talk about commitment. Like, I don't think there was anybody more committed in the history of the world than Noah, right? When he built the ark. So I'm saying all that to say this. It took preparation. He had to build that before the rains came so that when the rains came, he was ready for it. Are you with me? The Bible talks about this with Elisha, right? When we talked about digging the ditches before the rain came, so that when the rain came, you had a place to hold the water. Right? So you dig your ditch before the need is there. You dig your ditch before it actually happens. And it's through preparation on the front end that you're sort of victorious on the back end. Because it helps you to prepare for what it is. So in your ministry, as we believe for growth into 2020, and as we believe as I-69 comes through over the next X amount of years, and we're impacted by that, and we bridge it between the 500 and 1,000 people at our church, it's going to require us to dig the ditches before it happens. You need to treat your ministry as though it's double, meaning that you're digging the ditch, preparing for growth, preparing and believing God to come and fill that up. Does that make sense? So you're working towards that thing. You're not just fulfilling what you've got, but you're fulfilling what you've got, but you're preparing for growth. And you're doing it with strategic excellence in what you're doing. So what would change in your area of service if you were double the size that you are right now? So if our ushers had to be double the size because we have double the people, what would have to change? Well, we'd have to have more leaders. We'd have to have more of this. Okay, I'm not saying you go there overnight. But I'm saying that you start to sort of prep for that and you start pushing towards that. Start operating as though you're already there. And as you pursue that, you'll start to dig the ditch so that when the rains start coming, you start getting that going. Does that make sense? So I want you to think about whatever it is that you're doing, however that applies to you, and just think about the double down sort of approach, the double down concept. It'll require you to give even more excellence to what you do. In your notes, if you flip the page, you are only one idea away from a major breakthrough. So this is why doubling down in your area of ministry or service is so vital, because it forces you to think of new ideas. And the moment we stop thinking of new ideas, we stop growing. And the moment we stop growing, we start dying. Right? We've always got to be investing into growth. How do you do that? Well, through ideas after ideas after ideas. In fact, you're only one idea away from a major breakthrough. All it takes is one little idea that could change the whole course of the future. Everything. And we know this to be true. I can give you 100 million examples. But one idea changes everything. And in the context of ministry at HHC, we're one idea away from something majorly happening in our church, in our community, in our area of ministries, for your personal life, whatever it is, one idea away. So how important is it to sit around and think of ideas? One of the most important things we could ever do. Because as you pray and as you think and as you look at different ideas, what God does is He begins to bless you with those. And when you're faithful to take those ideas and grow them and wrestle with them, then you'll begin to dig the ditch. See, most ideas don't come fully mature. They come in an embryonic state. That's why most people give up on ideas like that. Because they don't understand the how it's going to happen. So instead of wowing it, like we talked about our service, they how it to death. So an idea comes in, instead of saying, wow, okay, well, how do we do that? They just say, well, how are we going to do that? How? And they just kill the embryo before it even has an opportunity to start growing into life. So every idea that God gives to you will never come fully mature. It always comes in an embryonic state. It's kind of like this random weird thing. And you kind of get it and you go, how do we do that? That's kind of big. Or that doesn't really make sense. Or I don't know if that's a very good idea or not. Because it doesn't come fully mature. It just comes embryonic. So you're not really sure what it is at first. Right? You're like, something's going on. I kind of have an idea, but it's very vague and weird. And it's kind of like when you see a baby, right? I mean, like from the conception. I mean, you know, it like turns into an alien before it turns into a baby. Right? Like it's just weirdly shaped and like it'll scare kids, right? Have you seen those pictures where like, here's an embryo in the state and the kids are like, ah! You know, like it looks like an alien and it's kind of weird shaped and all that stuff. Because it doesn't start to take shape until it sort of, you know, moves into its later stages and all that. And then it starts to form into what we see as, you know, kind of like a normal proportionate body in that. But a baby doesn't start there. It's conceived at a very embryonic, weird state. It just kind of forms and all that over time. And it's the same thing with ideas that you have for this church, for your ministry, for your life, and you can apply this to anything. Everything's going to come very embryonic. And if you're not careful, you will abort that idea before it has an opportunity to grow into something amazing. You'll give up on the idea before it ever fully matures. That's why most people stay stagnant in their life and they hit a lid in their life. It's not because they have any lids. Of course not. You're limitless. You're created by a limitless God. But you limit yourself because you won't wrestle with ideas. Einstein used to say this. He said, and he was very vocal about this. Einstein said, I'm not smarter than anyone. So I'm not. He said, I get all the credit for being a genius. He said, I'm not smarter than anyone. He said, but I stick with problems longer than anyone. That was his claim to being a genius. He said, I'm not smarter than anyone, but I'll stick with problems longer than anybody will. When everybody else gives up and hits a lid, says, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how. Einstein said, I just keep saying, wow, basically. I just stick with it. And I stick with it long enough until I find a solution. You know what he was basically saying in that is there's a problem. I don't know how to solve it. I've got some weird ideas. They're coming. They're very embryonic. Most people at that stage give up. He said, I just stay with it long enough to where it forms into something that gives me the solution. And then I just do what it does. And I get it. So I want you to know, this is why we want you to be thinking about your area of ministry. We want you praying about it, thinking about it, strategizing around how can we do it better. When we stop asking that question, we're going to limit our growth. But when we keep that fresh and alive and keep saying, how do we do it with excellence? How do we do it better? What can we add to it? How can we double down? What are some new ideas that we could do? What are some creative things? Well, that's kind of weird, I don't know, but let's not abandon it. Let's just kind of talk through it. Let's think about it. Let's kind of brainstorm about this and all that. When we stick with it long enough, you will see God start to honor that and reward that. So never stop thinking about new ways to improve what you do. Jim Rohn said this, ideas can be life-changing. Sometimes all you need to open the door is just one more good idea. And that good idea will turn into something great that changes everything in what you do. So, in your notes, here's what we want you to think about. Always bring your A game when it's time to serve. Always bring your A game. I mean excellence, ideas. You're giving it your all. Whatever you do it as if you're doing it to the Lord. You're bringing your A game. Listen. Pastor Chris last week talked about 91, number 190, right? 90 minutes on Sunday morning. That should be the number one priority. 90 minutes is 0.83% of your week. That's 0.83% of your week. 0.083% of your week. Doesn't even equate to like 1% of your week. That 90 minutes on Sunday morning. So what we're asking is this. When you come ready to serve for that 90, and as a servant on a Sunday, maybe a little longer because you show up a little bit earlier than that, but if you come for 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever it is on Sunday morning, you come with your A game. And you say, those 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever I serve on Sunday, I'm bringing the A game. I'm bringing the best. Or fill that in with that. If you're a sync group leader, if you do something throughout the week and it's time for you to come serve or come to the church and help out or come clean or do whatever it is, you're saying, I'm bringing my A game to bring it all. So, when you serve, we want you to be thinking of ideas. When you connect with your team leaders, we want you to be thinking of ideas. Give those ideas to your team leaders. Whoever's in charge of your area of ministry, if that's you, be asking your people about ideas. If it's you and you're a volunteer and you're kind of answering up to a team lead, bring ideas to them. Never be afraid to talk about those things because we want you to begin to get the right instruction so that what you do, you can do it the best that you can. When you receive instruction about what to do in your area of service, give it your all by being fully engaged. We want you to be at your best when it's time to go. So here's some commitments real quick that we want to ask our volunteers. And you know most of these, but I just want to reiterate them. Number one is this, I'll be present when I'm scheduled. Now, if we just did that, we would change everything in our volunteers. Because I would say, we have a lot of ministries that it's hard just to get people to show up. Right? Something always pops up, I forgot, or I did this, or I can't make it today, or whatever. We understand that happens sometimes, but here's what we're going to ask all of our volunteers is this, that you're going to commit, and when it's your time to be scheduled, that you make it a priority. You've got to show up. We can't do anything with you if you're not here. You can't make an impact if you're not here. So if I'm scheduled, I'm going to show up. And I'm going to pursue when I'm scheduled. I'm not just going to wait. I'm going to make sure, hey, am I scheduled this week? I just wanted to follow up. I'm not, I didn't hear from anybody. I don't know. None of that. You've got to take the initiative with painstaking excellence to say, I'm going to pursue, even if I don't know the schedule. I can't remember. I lost my email. I don't know when I'm scheduled. Don't wait for somebody to contact you. You go out and you ask, when am I on? I want to know. I'm going to mark it down. I'm going to carve it out. Right? So be present. Be on time. Please be on time when it's time to serve. Right? None of this kind of showed up 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. Right? Again, pains. You're serving the Lord. If Jesus were going to meet with you and you got dinner for him, you're going to be like, sorry, dude, I was 10 minutes late. No. You're not going to be lackadaisical about it. You're going to be like, wow, that's an honor. That's a big deal. Same thing with serving. I'll be prayed up and focused to serve. I'll always serve with a smile. I will always go the extra mile in what I do. So what I do. So not just what I'm asked, but I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to try to even go one step further than that. Right? And give it my all. I'll fulfill my duties with excellence in what I do. I'll be Christ-like in all my behavior. So my response, my attitude, my reactions to things, I want to be Christ-like in everything I do. And I'm never going to complain or gossip to others. You want to kill a move of God, it's real simple. Just talk negatively about other people, or about the ministry, or about something. The fastest way to do it, you can literally take something from 100% to almost zero. But it's the biggest trick in the end. So I want us to make sure that we just say, you know what? I'm just going to make a commitment. I'm not going to talk negative about my leaders. I'm not going to talk negative about the ministry. I'm not going to talk negative, even when things don't go right. Even if you have something to complain about, guess what you do? Nothing. You don't do it. Because it kills a move of God. Now, do you need to bring some things up and say, hey, I got some concerns, some things I want to talk to? That's okay. You do it with the right people. If the person that can't solve your problem, if you're not talking to them, you don't talk about it. If they don't have an ability to solve your problem, there's no reason to talk negative to them about it. It's just gossip. You only talk with the person that can solve the issue. So if you're frustrated with something that's going on, you don't talk about that with your co-volunteer. You don't go, I just wish they'd get on top of it with this stuff. It's so frustrating and all that. No, could they have solved your problem? No. Then you don't say a word to them about it. You go to the person that has the ability to create some change, and you talk with them. You appropriately say, hey, I've got a concern. We've got some issues here. I know that we can solve something out with here, so I need to talk to you about it. That makes sense? And I'm passionate about that, guys. Right? I take the Dave Ramsey approach. If you're not familiar with Dave Ramsey and his organization, they have a no gossip rule. And if you gossip once, you're fired on the spot. Done. That day. You leave. It's called a no gossip policy. And here's how they define it, is what I just mentioned. Then if you talk to somebody about your problem that doesn't have the ability or the authority to solve your problem, it's gossip, and you're fired on the spot, out the door. They say, we don't tolerate it 1%. And they've been pretty successful in an organization with that. Right? You better believe that nobody starts doing stuff around there because they know it's at stake. Now that's intense, but I just believe that's what is required. I believe that Jesus were on the earth and he was doing something. In fact, we could give a million reasons in scriptures that he would say the same thing. That if you're going to talk negatively about it, then get thee behind me, Satan. Because there's no place for it in my kingdom. Not one place. So, can you bring up problems and challenges? Absolutely. We want you to. But we want you to do it through the right chain, through the right authority, and through the right means that are godly means in ways and that God honors versus things that the enemy gets in and he just starts to weigh around. Does that make sense? So I just want to encourage you on that. I know that's a big one, but I want us to hang out on that. And then last one is I'll do whatever needs to be done. Right? So this is like that part in the commitment where it's like, just whatever it takes, I'm just going to do it. So even if things like, that doesn't really fall under us, that's kind of out of our jurisdiction as a ministry team or whatever, but it's like, look, if that's part of the team, then I'm just going to step up to the plate. I'm just going to make it happen. Whatever has to be done, I'll do it. Even if it is weird, even if it doesn't make sense, and the ushers get the brunt of this all the time, right? Like, I'm not sure if it's in we may have put it in the job description like later, but it's like, basically if we have anything to set up ushers, we're going to ask you to do it. Right? It's like, well, where is that in my commitment? So like ushering and all that. Well, it's not, but it just needs to get done, and we need your help, right? And you guys have a team that you've got a lot of people that can help. So, those things, they can be frustrating, right? We understand that. Maybe there's some things like, hey, can we work out a better system? But again, it's like, look, whatever got to be done, man. If we got a big event and this is kind of out of our area, doesn't really make sense, hey, if it needs to be done and we can do it, we'll do it. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. And if it's causing that much of an issue, then we'll go through the proper chains. And hey, we got a problem here. We need to figure out a solution on this. That's fine. But whatever's got to be done, you just say, "I'll just do it." Amen. So strategy is so vital. All these things we talked about. That's the second thing we want you to know, that we want you to get and understand. So remember these volunteer commitments and look over them, get them, internalize them, and just say, "These are the things that I'm going to be committed to, that I'm going to work on." Amen.